Hello, I thought I'd make a little video about the gear that I took on my recent trip along the Lycian Way in southern Turkey. It was a trip which went from late September all the way through October and into early November. It was almost exclusively a camping trip. I wilderness camped most nights and stayed on official campsites in a few of the major towns. So here goes. Right, first of all, clothing. Three pairs of cotton shorts. Cotton was a bad idea, should have been polyester or something. Two pairs of Thorlo trekking socks. These are a wool blend lycra mix. They're really good, didn't stink even after a couple of days' use, although I did try to wash them every day. One of them got a hole in after only a few days. I don't know how that happened, but it was a bit disappointing. A freebie cotton baseball cap. Black again, probably not the best colour, but the cotton one was nice. You could soak it and stick it on your head, keep your head cool for a couple of hours. One pair of mesh lined swimming shorts. Didn't wear those when I was actually on the trail, just wore them in the evenings and when the other clothes were being washed. The only waterproof I took was a waterproof jacket. This one's actually a cycling specific jacket. It's very lightweight, but it didn't get used because it didn't rain. A hooded fleece, which I only wore a few times in the evenings, generally just when I was up in the hills and it was a bit cooler and towards the end of the trip. One pair of zip-off leg trekking pants and two 100% polyester t-shirts. Obviously not everything was in the backpack. Some of these clothes I'd be wearing at the time, so yeah. Okay, the tent I took is an old MacPack Apollo. It's a two-man tent, just the normal two-pole standalone dome tent. It's a fantastic tent. It's been through all kinds of weather. It's just way too heavy. It comes in about 3.1 kilos, so that needs to be changed for something else. Or what I would say is that you need to take some good pegs. These are MSR groundhogs, and they were absolutely invaluable. The ground in Turkey is very, very stony, and at the end of a long hot summer is absolutely rock hard as well. Took a couple of dry bags. One had my spare clothes in, the other one had my sleeping bag in. My backpack is an old 60-litre Berghaus. It's been a fantastic pack, but it's got to the end of its life now. It's the old kind of Cordura type, and all the waterproofing's gone off it. So although it didn't rain, the stuff inside tends to get a bit damp just from at the bottom, just from me sweating. So I lined the pack with an old rubbish sack, and that lasted for most of the trip. Took an inflatable pillow. This one's a cheapie from Asivic. It wasn't great, but it was better than sticking the spare clothes inside the dry bag and sticking that inside the t-shirt. I've never really got along with that. It always just seems to feel like a brick after about 10 minutes, and I didn't have that many spare clothes anyway. The sleeping bag I took was a three-season one. It's mountain equipment, helium 400. The comfort is 4 degrees C. The minimum comfort was -2, and it only got used on no more than 5 nights, and then it was worn, just kind of zipped open. Most of the time I slept in just the silk liner, which I took with me. I slept on a Thermarest Trail Pro, I think it's called. Didn't have any problem with punctures, in spite of the ground being quite thorny in places. Possibly that was due to the fact that my tent has a thick bottom to it, which is maybe where a lot of the weight comes from. This was a great thing to take. Just a piece of 1-inch thick closed cell PU foam, just big enough to sit on, saved sitting on the hard ground in the evening or sitting on a rock at lunchtime, that kind of thing. Right, reading material. Obviously there's the Lycian Way guidebook, or Lycian Way, don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. I'll do a video review on that shortly, I hope, because there's a lot to say about it. It's kind of infamous on the way. Everybody has a good old gripe about it. Took a diary with me. On previous trips I've written lots in a diary. On this trip I didn't write a single word, so that was quite a lot of weight to carry for nothing. Took a couple of novels with me. Thought I'd take a couple of worthy books. Don't know why. It would have made more sense to take something easy reading, as it's pretty low on energy at the end of the day, and yeah, something easy reading would have been made far more sense really. I took along with this one. I took Homer's Odyssey, which I did actually finish, and it was interesting reading something which was, if not set in geographically the same area, it's certainly kind of culturally the same, with a lot of the ancient Greek, Roman, Byzantine ruins that you go through. Right, this is the map which comes along with the guidebook. Another great map. Doesn't have a scale on it. Very low in detail. Really, you only kind of use it for a very rough guide as to how far you've got to go that day. Went to the local library, got the most recent copy of The Lonely Planet I could find, and photocopied the relevant pages from Antalya to Fethiye, along with a few other background information pages and the language section out of the back. The language section was really good, kept that in my pocket with me the whole time. It's nice to try and use a little bit of Turkish, and you actually have to use it some of the time, or quite a lot of the time when you're buying stuff. So if you can learn kind of 1 to 10, yes, no, those kinds of things, that's a real help. The pages for the towns, I just threw them away as I passed through the town and they became redundant. Right, money belts. Took a money belt with me. I don't really like these things, but I don't have a day pack. I don't like carrying a day pack when I'm in town, so that's kind of it's unavoidable to have a money belt really. On the trail, it just lived in the top of my backpack. As regards money, euros are widely accepted in the tourist towns, along with US dollars and most European currencies, most of the major European currencies anyway. Outside of the main tourist towns, obviously it's only Turkish lira, and don't take a denomination bigger than 50 lira, otherwise it'll bring the whole village to a standstill. Bought a couple of these plastic Ziploc bags. I think they're an American brand called Locksack. The one which held the map stood up to the abuse really well, even though it was stuffed in and out of my backpack, folded in half dozens of times a day. The one which held my passport, Turkish visas, air tickets, all that kind of thing, the seal went on that in no time. The boots I wore were my lovely old Scarpas, which have got a lot of miles on them, but have reached the end of their life. And they hadn't actually been used for several years before I took them. And on the second day, luckily before I'd actually started the trail, I noticed that the heel was starting to delaminate. So I bought a big tube of contact glue and ended up sticking them together kind of every evening or every other evening. And you can see eventually it went all the way around. While I was in Fethiye, there isn't an outdoor shop in Fethiye that I could find or that anybody had ever heard of. But there were plenty of shoe shops. I found these, which thankfully I didn't have to wear, but I did use them in town and in the evening to give my feet a bit of a change. Thankfully I didn't have to wear them on the trail. Right, cooking stuff. Just took the usual single gas burner and the gas bottle. Obviously the gas bottles you can't take with you on the aeroplanes, you've got to buy them there. And the only place that I know of that you can get them, there's a great little outdoor shop in Antalya called Tibet Outdoor. They've got a website, tibetoutdoor.com. And when I was there, he had a lot of gas bottles in stock. At the end of the trip, I took my half bottle back for him to put in the hiker box, and he had very few bottles in. So if you're going to be using gas, I suggest you maybe buy them online beforehand, ask him to keep them in the shop, give them a call, come to some arrangement, because if you just go in on the off chance, then you may be disappointed and stuck. Right, I used this. This was great. It was a Life straw bottle, and it probably worked out cheaper buying that than buying lots of bottled water. I mean, bottled water is widely available and it is cheap, but this meant that I didn't have to carry as much water some of the time, and rather than drinking the warm water out of my pack, when you come to a spring, you can just drink instant, nice fresh water without having to treat it. Right, little stainless steel cooking pots with a lid. That's the bag it comes in. Took a couple of plastic sporks. One of them I gave away to a friend, and the other one I broke trying to get cold Nutella out of a jar in the morning. So I just ended up using the two broken halves for the rest of the trip. Cigarette lighter and a pot scrubber. That one is just to remind me to tell you about the spork. I wish I'd taken one of these, or even a couple of these, a small Tupperware plastic container, because things like Nutella, honey, jam, those kind of things all come in glass bottles, and they're heavy. So if you can transfer them into something like that, you'll save yourself a lot of weight. Food in general was a bit of a struggle. I mean, Turkish food is absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the food available on the trail is a bit limited. Turkey seems to be a country that still cooks all its meals from raw ingredients. So the choice and availability of packaged foods is very limited. You can get rice, pasta, packet soups, 3-minute noodles, that kind of thing. But yeah, don't expect to find kind of packet spaghetti bolognese and that kind of thing. It just doesn't happen. Assorted electronics, old digital camera and charger, iPod and charger, iPod. I'm not an electronics guy. Petzl Tika headlamp, perfect, totally adequate. This is a little monocular which I like to carry for spotting wildlife, that kind of thing. Big tube of contact glue. That's actually the second one. That's just the case for the monocular. My watch died on the trip, so I ended up buying another one. That was about 10 or 12 Turkish lira from a little local store. Just a few other assorted things. Swiss Army knife. I know they're a little bit heavy, but it's got everything on there that you need. Compass, emergency whistle, spare cigarette lighter. Okay, the medical stuff I took, it looks like I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, but I'm not. Outside of the main towns, you can't buy any of this stuff apart from maybe toothpaste and, big bottles of shampoo, that kind of thing. So I took some anti-diarrhea tablets, which I didn't need, some antiseptic cream, some bite and sting relief, some Voltarol, kind of muscle relaxant stuff, some water purification tablets as a backup, just in case the Life Straw broke or ran out. The Life Straw says it's supposed to do about 1,000 litres minimum. Obviously I didn't use that many, but I thought it was a good idea just to take a backup anyway. Some SPF 20, which I'm not good enough at using, so I barely used half of what I took. Some body wash and some shampoo. Had to label them because the shampoo looks just like the SPF 20 and you don't want to mix those up. Some concentrated laundry wash, biodegradable stuff. I could have taken probably a fifth of that bottle and still had enough. It goes an incredibly long way. Just a little roll of Band-Aids, some ibuprofen, paracetamol, multivitamins, one a day, and prescription meds, toothpaste, toothbrush. One thing of toothpaste lasted the whole way. Some bug spray, which is kind of necessary actually. There's a few places which were quite bad for mosquitoes. Not so bad that you'd need to take a head net or anything, but enough that they're irritating. Some Rennies for acidy stomach. Just a couple of sets of earplugs. It's pretty noisy in town often, with traffic or lots of barking dogs, that kind of thing. The mosque very early in the morning. And if you're out in the countryside, there's just an endless number of owls and things to keep you awake all night. Or wild pigs I had around the tent as well. Elastic bandage. I didn't actually have this or the safety pin when I started the trip. The safety pin I found just along the trail one day, and the elastic bandage I found hanging in a plastic bag on a bush, with a little note from some fantastic Ukrainian person saying, please take this if you need it. and amazingly I'd sprained my ankle really badly about 3 hours beforehand, so boy did I need it. So that strapped my ankle up for the second half of the trip. Right, all of the medical kits and assorted nonsense went into this little nylon wash bag. Yeah, one roll of toilet paper. Again, that lasted for the whole trip. And that's about it. This thing is a little kind of plastic bucket. This isn't the actual one I took. This one's a little smaller than the one I took. The one I took got thrown away at the end because I forgot to pack it, and I couldn't be bothered to take my pack apart to put it back in again. But along with this is about 12 meters of cord, nylon cord. It describes in the guidebook how there are a lot of wells and cisterns which you'll need a bucket to get the water out of, as there isn't generally a bucket supplied. So this is just the bottom of a 5 litre, I think this one was, windscreen washer fluid plastic, container. It weighs about 70 grams, something like that. To use as a bucket, obviously you'd have to put a couple of holes on the sides and thread the string through. But what I did use it for was washing my clothes in and washing myself in. You put about a litre of water in there and rub yourself down. I've got an old Thermarest pack towel, cut a bit off it as the washcloth, and you can give yourself a pretty good kind of sponge bath with a litre of water. At the end of the day, after you've been hot and sweaty all day, it's really nice. It's a good psychological boost to get cleaned up, and it really helps your feet to get them clean at the end of every day as well. So that was about that. If you've got any questions or anything about the gear I took or about the trail itself, just post them at the bottom and I'll try and get back to you. Thanks very much. Bye now.